Vancouver 2010. The warmest January on record means there mightn't actually be any snow. But that doesn't mean there won't be any action. From the downhill to the bobsled. And all the big hits in the ice hockey. It's the world's greatest show on the world's thinnest snow. Vancouver 2010. It's gonna be hot. Inconveniently hot.
Hello and welcome to Hungry Beast for 2010. Coming up tonight, Operation Titstorm, the cyber attack that took down the Australian Parliament House website today.
We revealed the results of our national survey on what Australia thinks about the mandatory internet filter, which contains some surprises for the government.
We'll look into how the internet filter might affect you.
And Victoria Dynamite once again brings you the stories that matter about the people who don't.
You only need to look at Danny Rhodes to see Valentine's Day angers him.
But first, how did Mary McKillop get to be on the verge of becoming our very first saint? Lewis Hobba is on the trail.
Mary McKillop looks all set to become Australia's first ever saint after the Pope recently decreed that Mary's curing of a cancer patient qualifies as a genuine second miracle. To discuss the miracle approval process, I'm joined by Father Fiore of the Congregation of the Causes of Saints, live from the Vatican. Father, thanks for joining us.
Good evening, my son.
Now, Father, how does the Church recognise a miracle?
Well, it's quite simple. After God gets bored with bringing misery to Haiti and the Pakistani cricket team, he hurtles an edict attached to a lightning bolt down to our miracles department. Just joking. We don't have a miracles department. You can just download a PDF and send your application to reception. Well, we are also working on an app as well, so that'll be good.
How many miracle applications do you get each year?
Well, about 25. Far more if you count every Jesus face discovered on burnt toast. We get about 10 of these sent in a day. What do you think of this one? Is it Jesus or Demir Dokic? I can't decide. But I am thrilled to say we have confirmed Mary McKillop's second miracle, curing a woman of an inoperable cancer in 1993.
And how did you prove it was a miracle?
Well, the one thing we know about a miracle is that they have no explanation. So we had to work very hard to prove we have no idea if Mary saved her.
But you've said that Mary McKillop did save this woman.
And we can only know that because of our extensive lack of evidence.
Is it based on any scientific evidence at all?
No, it's far too technical for that, Lewis. What about this one? Could this be one of the kings of Leon? Oh, your toast is on fire.
Father, there are many cases of cancer going into remission without chemotherapy. I mean, what's the difference between those incredible stories and this one?
Well, this woman prayed to a piece of Mary's cloth.
Then why don't you just sanctify the cloth?
Don't be absurd, Lewis. Cloth doesn't save people.
Only deceased Catholics do.
Precisely.
But couldn't this just be seen as an attempt to boost diminishing church attendance in Australia by creating a local hero?
That's awfully cynical, Lewis. You forget she cured cancer.
But you don't know if she did.
Which is why we believe it's true.
Father Fiore, thanks for your time.
Bless you, my son.
Stuff said this week. It's our democracy. We bought it, we paid for it, and we're going to keep it. Statement by public relations firm Murray Hill after the US Supreme Court ruled corporations have the right to free speech. Murray Hill have followed that logic and say they're planning to run for a seat in Congress as a corporation. Murray Hill press release, February 4th, 2010.
I was particularly satisfied with the judge's ruling that the production company should pay IINet's legal fees.
Put that in your pipes and smoke it, you fat, rich $18 a movie and I can't even eat my burger in your shitty cinemas.
Who's laughing now? An illegal file sharer discussing the landmark federal court case between IINet and the motion picture industry, which was won by the ISP last week. Email to Hungry Beast team member, February 6th, 2010.
Financial crisis. Stalled, too many customers. CEO, no more. Jonathan Schwartz, Chief Executive of Sun Microsystems, who announced his resignation with a haiku via Twitter. The Guardian newspaper, February 5th, 2010.
Every time I'm on public transport, I'm surrounded by Harry Potter and Twilight. Adults of today are addicted to children's books. Get it together. You've had your childhood, remember? It was filled with exciting new powdered foods and racist grandparents. At this rate, this stuff will be taught at universities.
Spot's journey is an existential imagining of self, a yearning for truth, and an Oedipal obsession with his estranged mother.
You want to hold on to your inner child? Fine. But so did Pee Wee Herman, Zig the Clown and Michael Jackson. If adults insist on copying everything children do, how long till they're all napping, breastfeeding or listening to Miley Cyrus?
That sounds awesome.
Reading children's books is a little bit like owning gollywogs. It's a bit wrong, but mostly just embarrassing. If this keeps up, we'll have no choice but to install these in bookstores. Not going to happen, mate. Go read some Tim Winton. Adults reading kids' books. It's a little bit bullshit.
3 weeks ago, Australia's Defence Department got its very own official cyber warfare centre. It comes as governments all around the world are scrambling together the resources to launch and defend against an online attack. And the most likely of these is a distributed denial of service attack. And it works a bit like this. A virus secretly infects thousands of ordinary computers, turning them into zombie computers. Together, they form something called a botnet, this network of sleeper cells waiting to be triggered by a single machine called a bot herder. Now, the attack itself is very simple. The bot herder instructs all of the zombie machines to contact a single website at the same time, and the sheer number of requests will cause the site to overload and crash. Ooh, scary. All right, it doesn't sound like much more than just a bit of mischief, but when you consider how intertwined the net is with everything from our mobile phone networks to our trains, you start to realise the scope of this kind of warfare. For example, in 2007, Estonia was crippled by a massive denial of service strike against government websites. But DDoS attacks are at their most crippling when combined with real-world assaults. In 2008, Russia invaded Georgia, but 3 weeks before the tanks rolled over the border, the attacks began on Georgian servers, damaging the government's ability to communicate with citizens. Now, the Georgian attacks mostly came from servers in the US, but that botnet army could have been commanded from anywhere: Helsinki, Pyongyang, Kalgoorlie. The Russians were the primary suspects, but no one really knows. And DDoS attacks aren't just used for warfare, they're also used for protests. Fittingly, the online collective best known for their use of these kinds of attacks is called Anonymous. In fact, they're attacking the Australian government right now.
Hello, Prime Minister Rudd. We are Anonymous.
Anonymous have no leader, no centralised structure and no list of members. They grew out of web forums, and their previous targets have included the Church of Scientology, whose websites and email servers they brought crashing down.
Over the past several months, we have observed the actions of your government in regard to censorship of internet content in Australia.
Anonymous strongly opposed the government's mandatory internet filter, and at 8 a.m. today they launched Operation Titstorm, promising to bring down government websites by emailing them massive amounts of pornography.
We shall proceed to do everything in our power to annihilate your government's presence on the internet. We are Anonymous. We do not forgive. We do not forget. Expect us.
Depending on how you see things, Anonymous either represent a brand new take on democratised protests, cyber vandals, or self-important nerds just living out their Rebel Alliance fantasies. Whichever it is, last September an Anonymous protest succeeded in pulling Kevin Rudd's website offline for a short while. Today, their target, the website of Parliament House, was down at various points across the day, and that's with a warning. It may all seem harmless. I mean, we are just talking about websites being pulled down here, but imagine a more focused, a more disciplined organisation, and suddenly it becomes clear Australia is no different to countries like Estonia or Georgia. In an interconnected world, we're all open for attack. Let's hope we're ready.
Ever since the internet filter, also known as the clean feed, was announced, it's attracted a very vocal opposition. But are they the majority? To find out, Hungry Beast commissioned a nationwide telephone survey by McNair Ingenuity Research. The survey polled over 1,000 people and was demographically balanced to reflect the Australian population. The results are in. Here is the internet filter as the country sees it.
Some of the results might surprise you. First up, how many of you are in favour of a mandatory internet filter that would block access to material that's been refused classification under Australian law? 80%. However, only half of you are in favour of a government-appointed body deciding which websites you can visit and which will be put on the blacklist. And considering the blacklist won't be made public, the government might want to pay attention to the next result. 91% of Australians think we should be told which websites have been refused classification and why. Currently, everything else that's refused classification, like movies or books, is made public, meaning governments can't just pick and choose what they think is acceptable without public scrutiny. And for most of you, the need for government accountability on the internet filter is an issue. 70% of Australians are concerned that future governments could use the filter to restrict free speech or to block content they don't approve of. So, while 80% of the Australian population support a mandatory internet filter, an overwhelming 91% believe we should know what it's blocking. Perhaps on those figures, the Rudd government will reconsider keeping the blacklist a secret. You can see the full results of the Internet Filter Survey on the Hungry Beast website.
So we know what Australians think of the idea of a filter, which, by the way, will cost tens of millions of dollars. But how will it work? Or rather, will it work? Here's Dan Ilic with his take on it.
Oh, hey Chris, what's happening? I'm stressed out from being a YouTube star, so I'm heading home for a midday flog.
Enjoy while you can, big guy.
What do you mean by that?
Oh, well, the federal government is planning on filtering the internet.
Why?
Well, to protect the kids.
But Dan, I'm 21.
Not you, mate. Look, here's an informative graphic to show you how the internet filter works.
You type in a web address. Your internet service provider cross-checks that address with a blacklist of banned websites. If it's on the blacklist, all you'll see is an error page, thus shielding everyone from the evils of the web and returning them safely to the wholesome goodness of TV.
But what websites will be on this blacklist?
Why don't we ask Minister for Communications, Senator Stephen Conroy?
You can't buy it on the bookshelves today. You can't get it from a newsagent and you can't see it at the movie. This is material that is refused classification, and that is the only material that we are including in the filter.
Namely, overseas websites that contain things like child sexual abuse, bestiality, detailed instructions on euthanasia, offensive and exploitative sexual fetishes.
Well, who decides what goes on the blacklist?
That's a very good question, Chris. A very good question.
The general public will complain about sites they don't like to ACMA, the Australian Communication Media Authority. ACMA will then prepare a blacklist of sites to be blocked following the same criteria that are used to ban illegal books, films and magazines. But the plan is that it will all be a secret. We won't be able to find out what we're not allowed to see. A bunch of people we don't know will play judge, jury and executioner on websites, and none of us will even know that there was a trial.
Yeah, point of principle, civil liberties, blah, blah, blah. But what's the real problem?
Well, Chris, mistakes can be made. The ACMA test blacklist, which the government denies exists, was leaked last year. And on that blacklist was this Queensland dentist and this tuck shop lady.
As in school canteen.
Apparently her site was put on the list because she had the word teen in her site. But don't worry, this was just a test blacklist. I'm sure ACMA will iron out all those bugs by the time the real one comes along. Besides, you want to hope so, particularly if they're going to slow down the speeds of some of your favourite websites.
What do you mean slow down?
Well, if a page from a highly trafficked site is on the blacklist, it could slow down the connection speed for everyone who tries to go to it.
It was never going to slow the internet. Telstra, Optus, Primus and IONET said, we accept that it's not going to slow the internet and we can do it.
How will high traffic sites like YouTube be affected if one of the pages...
That is a legitimate concern. If it was just automatically included in the filter, it would slow the internet down, which is why we said we won't include it. So we're currently in discussions with Google about how we can work this through. What we're saying is these are our laws and we'd like you to apply our laws. I mean, Google at the moment filter an enormous amount of material on behalf of the Chinese government.
China? Interesting example. If you want to see the full interview with Senator Conroy, you can. It'll be on our website, unfiltered.
There's an old Chinese proverb that says nothing can get between a 15-year-old and a bucket of porn. Here we have 3 ordinary 15-year-olds. We set them the task of bypassing the internet filter to get to the bucket of porn. Are you ready?
Yep.
Go. Now, just how long will it take for these?
Me too. And done.
Well, that took about 4 seconds. How did you do it?
I used a proxy server.
Oh, right. And you? What about you?
I used Tor, which is an anonymous private network.
And what about you? How did you do it?
I had to Google it.
Oh, well done. Have a lolly. And a Playboy.
So let me get this straight. Will the internet filter slow down my connection?
For some websites.
Will the internet filter stop me seeing things I want to see?
Could do.
Will the internet filter be easy to get around?
Yes.
And I guess most importantly, will the mandatory internet filter protect kids from porn?
Not really. You're going to need additional filters for that.
So will pedophiles be able to get around the internet filter?
Yes.
He's right. There's heaps of other ways for them to get what they want, including IRC, VPN, news groups, and even old-fashioned email.
I feel depressed.
Don't be. Here, have a lolly and a Playboy. Enjoy your midday flog, just like the olden days.
No thanks, Dad. I think I'm off to apply for a job at ACMA.
Huh.
Lewis versus Nick. Battleground Cricket.
Hi, I'm Nick.
And I'm Lewis.
And this is a cricket player. Cricket isn't even a real sport. Where I come from, a bunch of guys standing around wearing cardigans is called unemployment. Cricket's not athletic, it's arthritic.
They don't wear cardigans, Nick. They sport them. Need I say more?
Yeah.
It takes a lifetime to learn to bowl in a tiny rough patch or face a 150k delivery. This isn't checkers. It's a grueling test of endurance.
Spare me. They take breaks for tea. And endurance? Warney was a bean-eating smoker, Taylor was tubby, and David Boone was only famous for drinking 52 tinnies on a flight to England.
Well, Booney didn't need to run. He just stood still and smashed sixes. You try doing that hungover. A 5-day test is no cakewalk.
Cake is probably the only thing these guys would walk for. Cricket is just this. For 5 days. It's so boring, the commentators have to find ridiculous stats to sex it up.
If he hits this 4, it'll be only the second time a 23-year-old debutante with a middle name Cyril has scored 43 in Perth on a Thursday before lunch.
Cricket is for Rain Man.
It's the gentleman's game that brings the world together. If I see an Indian walking around with a bat, I know we both speak cricket.
That bat's just to protect him in Melbourne.
That's just not cricket.
Boring.
Brilliant.
Think about it.
Cricket, brilliant or boring? You decide.
$190,000. The amount Nagano Prefecture in Japan says it will make this year by extracting gold particles from residential sewerage. $36,000. The price New Zealand student Unigirl will be paid for her virginity after auctioning it online to the highest bidder. $12,391,699,231 and climbing. The US national debt.
Excuse me, Prime Minister. How are you today?
I'm not too bad.
What's your number one priority?
Number one priority? Here are 2 big priorities for the nation.
I regard war on unemployment as of the government's highest priority.
The government has no greater priority than maintaining confidence in the economy. Our first national priority must always be supporting Australian jobs. My overwhelming priority is to build those schools. For this Australian government, there is no higher priority than the national security of our country. Stabilisation of the global financial system remains a key priority. That is because it is a core priority for the nation that we deal with the attitudes of men on violence towards women. This is a very good relationship between Australia and India. It's one to which this government attaches the highest priority, and we in this country have managed to keep unemployment so far at 5.8%. That has been number one priority. And for this government, there is no higher priority.
The government's highest priority.
That has been number one priority.
Stand right in here.
Yep.
I'm just going to ask you a couple of questions.
Last time I cried, properly cried.
You don't mean just watch a soppy movie on TV?
When Mum died, I guess.
When someone told me the truth. Yeah.
The truth about what?
About my certain behaviours and attitudes.
2 days ago. Full on crying.
When my daughter was born.
That was because my dad, I spoke to him and he was just so forgiving for everything that I've ever done.
Yeah, I certainly cried and wasn't afraid to, so yeah, I was proud of it.
Like coming down from a big night, watching some pussy movie.
It's depressingly recently, actually. I think it was when my 14-year-old cattle dog got murdered by my mother. She took it down the road and had it put down without my knowledge.
A surprise 40th for my brother, and just seeing him come in and be surprised, it just got me so emotional, and just, you know, that made me cry. But that could have been a little bit too, because I was just had a baby.
I can't say I really ever cried.
Just for no apparent reason, just because it was all on top of me and I decided I'll cry it out.
I suppose when you've been through the things I've been through, that, you know, you become hard.
I don't focus on the negative things. If I stay positive, well, then you don't feel sad, right?
I lost a friend.
I've cried many times over the last 3.5 years for the loss of my wife.
I was just sitting and reflecting on how wonderful my life has become, and I was just overcome with that gratitude.
Very good friend, only a couple of years older than me. I've known him since I was 16. Has Alzheimer's.
I'm 60, nearly 61, and I finally have a life that I've always wanted.
I cried because of my loss. I didn't cry because she went, because she had to go. She was in a lot of pain and suffering. So, yeah, I cry for my loss. Anyway, there we are.
You only need to look at Danny Rhodes to see Valentine's Day angers him. So let's look at him instead of this unrelated man. This week, Danny became the latest victim of plagiarism by greeting card companies.
These Valentine's Day cards have the exact same private messages that I've been sharing with my girlfriend.
It's called thought theft, and like my voice at the end of this sentence, it's on the rise.
I mean, every single word in those cards. I don't know if they've got someone following me or if they're reading my thoughts.
Danny's been just completely ripped off.
Meet Michelle, the love of Danny's life. Together they claim...
It's like they've taken the words
right out of his mouth. The uncredited theft costing Danny an estimated $9,000, if this graphic is to be believed.
And look at this one, honey. I love you. I say that all the time.
Yep. Happy birthday. He says it like every year.
At least once a year.
It's a classic case of Danny and Goliath.
Danny Rhodes believes you have a lot to answer for.
Answer for what?
The question.
What is the question? I rest my case.
You guys have been unjustly treated, and you deserve it. Don't you fucking dare! Filthy slut.
So this Valentine's Day, how can couples be sure the messages they receive haven't been plagiarised? This man says they can't, and that's good enough for me. But when good enough gets boring, why not get bad with the AK400 at $29.90 drive away? AK400.
But it's good to have some thunder in your thighs. Woo!
That's it for the show tonight, but Hungry Beast continues throughout the week with more stories on our website.
And remember, our website is not just for us, but it's a forum for you too. Each week we'll be calling for your video contributions, and if they're good enough, we'll take the one we like the most, give it $1,000 and give it a run on the show. Conditions are on our website.
This week, Sean Elliott gets the cash for his video on the internet filter, Clean Feed, The Clash of Perceptions. Here's a sample.
This is an argument between two different generations about their competing perceptions about what the internet actually is. The debate over the clean feed is essentially between internet immigrants and internet natives.
Sean's full video is on the website. Next week, it could be you. Send us a video by next Monday and tell us what you'd put on your internet blacklist. Be creative and have some fun with it. Me? I'd be blacklistingkatyperry.com.
And I'd be blacklistingdanilic.com. Remember, it doesn't matter if you don't have a video camera.
Just shoot it on your phone or your webcam if that's all you've got.
And keep your video under 2 minutes and make sure all your work is original and your own. Otherwise, we won't be able to use it. So no pictures from TV, the internet, DVD, music you didn't make yourself, and please, no Rick Astley.
Till next week, when you tell us what you'd put on your internet blacklist. Good night.
Good night.
Next week on Hungry Beast, behind the scenes of the latest talent show that's captured the nation's hearts.
Do you have family troubles?
Issues with body image?
No. Ambiguous sexuality, yeah?
Yes! Look, we're sorry to do this to you, but you're going to Sydney.
Well done, mate.
Thank you.
That's next week on Hungry Beast.